people think that you have that like on one of those record buttons.
It's not.
No, you do it every time.
I do it quite a bit.
And I wonder if anyone still thinks it's what it's not.
You think they think I'm smoking a bowl?
Something.
Or a bong or something?
I mean, that's why
I don't even know the right language.
You're smoking the marijuana.
Yeah. I'm actually drinking a sparkling ice.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking alcohol. You know why?
Why?
I've been studying my data metrics.
Ooh.
And I'm finding out that every time I drink, it like all my biometrics on my data or my body just go to shit every time I drink.
Really?
So I'm like, so I've been drinking a ton less.
Is that like when they say beer gives you the shits? Is it the same thing?
I don't know, but my resting heart rate goes up. You're figuratively shit. Okay. Yeah. Like my resting heart rate, we call heart rate variability goes into the trash. My, the frequency of my breathing gets super high. Like everything goes crappy, and then I sleep like crap. And so it's like, wow, I don't think I should drink as much as I'm drinking. So I've just cut back a ton, not for any other reason that like, I'm just looking at the data.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, I think a lot of people have sleep issues.
Yeah.
And a lot of people put back a couple before they go to bed and don't think about that. And, what's happening to their body as those chemicals are entering everything in your body while you're sleeping.
Yeah. One of the things I'm doing for sure is like not drinking 3 or 4 hours before bed.
Yeah.
Which basically means like right when I get off of work, I can have like 1 or 2 drinks, and then I can't have any alcohol for the rest of the night.
Yeah. My wife, a long time when I would drink a soda regularly, like just for everything. And I still do. I've cut it down to like 2 a day. I try to, unless I go to restaurants, but, my wife got me into drinking. Yay. My wife got me into, drinking water. More because I don't really drink much water.
Right.
And so now I drink water before I go to bed. So when I get home from work, I don't drink anything but water for the rest of the night. And, as much water as I drink, I don't get up and pee in the middle of the night.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just because I'm drinking water and not something else. Because I actually think that I have to pee more when I drink soda, like anything with caffeine or something.
Because it's a diuretic, right? It pulls the liquid out of your body.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I got a dad joke.
Okay.
So I looked this one up. It took me about an hour. Because I was being super picky.
You really set this up to be.
And it's not a good joke. I'm just going to put that out there. It's not a very good joke. It's kind of, I want to say it's dirty, but it's not. But it rung true with me because I do this all the time. So how many bicyclists does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Oh, how many bicyclists does it take to screw in a light bulb? I do not know. 10. Okay.
So you need 1 to change it, and 9 others to argue about the aerodynamics, weight, lumens, and most importantly, color. that one would be good for Tom from Outbound Lighting. So they don't even have 10 people.
Man, that one was really not good.
I told you, but I didn't play it off like it was good.
I feel like we owe our listeners like a second one.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So when I was younger, I dated this girl. Mm-hmm. She's beautiful. Super nice girl, smart, liked her a lot, spent a lot of time with her. But she had a lazy eye.
Okay.
Like, not a big deal.
Except you never know where she's looking.
Yeah. And so like I had to break up with her because I was worried that she was seeing someone on the side.
Oh man.
Is that any better? Is it not any better?
Your delivery was great.
Thank you. So the joke sucked, but my delivery was good. Better than mine.
I'm reading it off my phone, which I had to save it as a picture. Otherwise, my phone would go to sleep. So
right on, man.
But
so it's Sunday.
Yep.
And we just got done doing a good ride.
Yeah.
I do want to. Well, we'll talk about the ride in a little bit. But yesterday I dedicated most of the day to doing two things. One is watching hockey because the NHL is back.
Nice.
After the Four Nations tournament, which was fan-fucking-tastic.
Was it like the Lakers and the Steelers?
Yeah, perfect.
So, yeah.
Yep. It's exactly who it was. And, but then I also did bike maintenance all day and I ran into a bunch of, problems. And so I wanted to kind of talk about some of those things.
Okay.
If you're cool with that.
Sure.
And the first one is, and this is kind of an age-old problem that we've had forever. And so I thought it might be good because I think everyone at some point deals with this. So I thought you could share your bike shop wisdom with our listeners on a couple of these topics. And then I have a question specifically about, and this is about hydraulic disc brakes. And we've put the Dominion, the Hayes Dominion A4s.
Yep.
So that's the 4 pistons on Lacey switchblade. So it's kind of like a, long travel trail or short travel enduro bike kind of.
Yep. Yeah.
And her front, and it's got a big rotor. It's got 203 rotor on the front. It's got a Shimano rotor on it.
Okay.
Which I know it doesn't have the Hayes rotors because they don't make the Hayes rotors with center lock, and these actual tires have center lock. So we couldn't put Hayes rotors on there, but they seem to fit just fine and they work okay.
Yeah. Hayes will get mad, but we've had pretty good luck with those rotors and that brake. No problem. Every company is like, you got to use our stuff, and it's because they test to that stuff. And so they can't really, one, they don't want to be like, yeah, Shimano stuff's great because they're selling their stuff.
Yeah, please.
But two, they are testing to their stuff. They want the brake to be the best that they've tested and have the best experience for the rider. And so they'll always kind of be like, you got to use our stuff. Practically, that's the difference between rotors sometimes is a big one and sometimes not at all. Like TRP makes one that is extra thick.
Yeah.
And if you don't use the TRP rotor with their brakes, you'll get a very different experience than if you use their rotor. Yeah. And so sometimes it matters and then sometimes it doesn't.
So if you're matching brakes to rotors, talk to your bike shop. They can probably help you figure out if it'll work or
if
not.
it'll be a big difference or not. Yeah.
And in this case, I talked to you. I talked to Croto and said, hey, what do you guys think? And you guys both thought it would work. Yep. All right. So there's a whole bunch of things I want to talk about here, but I got a squeaky brake, front brake. Okay. And they're semi-metallic. And what I learned was that I think you can buy them aftermarket from different companies, but Hayes themselves does not make a resin rotor for the A4, does not make a resin pad for the A4. They have a semi-metallic and a metallic. I think they call it semi-metallic and sintered.
Yeah. So those are their two. Yep. And this has been something they've been doing forever. A lot of bike companies, their brakes will have different names. So like Shimano is resin and metal.
Yep.
And then other companies will be organic. Yep. And metal or sintered or something. Yep. So you kind of have to figure out which one they're saying. And then there's companies like Cool Stop and MTX, and there's a couple other companies.
There's a bunch of them,
where they make a bunch of different versions.
Yep.
And so usually when I'm looking to bring pads into the shop, I have two requirements. There's one that's quieter and then one that tends to last longer. Yeah. And that's usually kind of what you end up with, one or the other. Yeah. Sometimes you can get both in one package. It just depends. And then if you're on a downhill bike in Arizona, because we don't have wet conditions, if you're on a downhill bike and you're just going through your pads too fast, you go metal. And then if you want a little quieter pads, you're more cross country and you just don't want to make a noise, usually resin. The softer resin pads. So
they got semi-metallic on there, purportedly the quieter version of the two options. There's a sintered and a semi-metallic, and can't get this thing to quiet down.
Okay.
So the first thing I do is Lacey had dropped her bike recently and I'm testing the wheel out and there's like a chunk in the wheel.
Okay.
Like you're chunking the brake. You can hear it's like clunk, 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 clunk.
Okay.
And so I inspect the rotor and find out that it's like bent, and it's bent in a weird way, not in a way that you can repair it, I don't think, unless you heated it up or something. Then I don't know what you're doing. So long story short, I replaced the rotor.
Okay.
Put a brand new rotor on.
Yeah.
Same rotor, XT203 center lock Ice Tech.
Okay.
A good rotor. Mm-hmm. Brand new. Get it on, go through the bedding process. It's still squealing like crazy. Take the pads out, get some really fine sand. You can tell me if I totally did this wrong.
So far you sound like everybody else. So that's good. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. You're doing what everybody else does.
Okay. So. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we'll see. Took some sandpaper, laid it down on the concrete. So it's completely flat.
Yep.
Put the pad on top of it. So I got a real nice flat, and just kind of, there was black stuff on the outside of the pad.
Yep. Yeah.
And
glazing.
Yeah. Whatever. Glazing. Yeah. Got all that stuff off, got down to where the pad looked brand new again. It didn't take much. Put them back on, still squeaking like a motherfucker.
Okay.
What can I do?
Man, there's so many variables. So I got to throw that disclaimer out there because We see all types of situations that cause that. There's been some weird ones in the past. There's been some really common ones. Usually when a bike comes into the shop and it's got squealy brakes, most common that we see, and I'm not saying this is your case, but the most common that we see is somebody has contaminated the pad somehow.
Right.
So pads tend to be kind of a porous. If you were to look at them really close with a microscope, they look kind of like sponges.
Yep.
And all of those crevices will take in oils. And so handling with your hands, you want to avoid that.
So don't touch the actual pad surface.
Or your rotor.
Yep.
That's the other thing.
Yep. The right way to clean a rotor, I think, is with rubbing alcohol.
Yeah. So we tend to clean it with rubbing alcohol to get any oils off of it.
Right.
Sometimes you will use abrasives to scuff it to try and take the glazing that may be on the rotor. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So when you get these weird circumstances, the hardest thing is that trying to figure out what's actually causing it. So I'll give you an example of a weird one that bike mechanics dealt with a while back with Avid brakes on Specialized.
Okay.
And the Specialized on one particular bike made this weird brake mount that was kind of, they used to have, instead of post mount, they had international standard.
IST?
Yep. And they would stick up, and then you'd use an adapter to get a bigger rotor. What was happening is the brakes were fine, but they were kind of vibrating because
interesting.
The mount and the adapter brought them up so high that they were too high. They were too far away.
So the frequency,
yes,
like it was actually chattering.
Yep. Yeah. And so we were a Specialized dealer and we were dealing with this and trying to figure out how to fix it. And this is a while ago. So if nobody remembers this, don't worry.
Beefy mount
No, the weirdest thing, because we had to work with Specialized, but then we had to work with Avid at the time was making the brake.
Yeah.
And Avid at the time would give you brand new brakes, like they would do anything. Like they were amazing. And back then, so we would put a brand new set of brakes, brand new rotor on, and it would still do it. And at that point you're like, okay, wait, it's probably not the brake at this point.
Yeah.
We've replaced everything.
Yeah.
What Avid found out, because they were having problems too, and they would go to the pits at races and try and figure the same issue out, is because that setup was so far away from the actual beefiness of the frame.
Yep.
It would vibrate. And so they figured out, and just, I don't know if it was trial and error or whatever, but there was a banjo on this caliper. And instead of having it shoot straight to the frame and kind of taper down to the frame and then get zip tied to the frame, which they do, they had this banjo point straight down and then do a curve, which kind of gave an extra brace. It used the hose as kind of a brace to stop that vibration, and it worked. And so there was a whole generation of Specialized that every time we brought them into the shop, we would build them that way to get rid of that particular problem that caused those noises. So
let me back up. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm going to come back to what you just said. So is it possible, because I ordered some new pads, which get delivered tomorrow, because Lacey's got to ride on Tuesday. Otherwise, I would have went and got them from you guys, but you guys are closed on Monday.
Yeah, that's because we want to ride our bikes.
Yeah, which is totally fine. No problem.
Just saying.
But just know I'm going to buy things from Jensen every once in a while when we're closed.
Don't go with Jensen.
It was the only place I could get them that I knew would deliver them fast. But is it possible that the pads got, something on them and they got contaminated, and even after I sanded it, they're still contaminated?
Yeah, absolutely. Because so I'm going to talk real generic about this stuff, because your instance may be different than everybody else's, and the biggest thing that we see is this contamination.
Right,
and that is usually the pad picks up some sort of oil, either from skin, or a lot of people don't realize when you're washing your bike, it's the water is splashing oil from your drivetrain over to the brake, or just from your bike in general. I mean, we get bikes in where the seals are blown on the shock and they're leaking all over the brake.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah. But we even have, squealing issues on brand new bikes where you're in, like your case, where you're trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Contamination usually means that something's gotten on the pad. The number one thing that everybody does that bike shops tend not to do, and I'll tell you why this is.
Sand them.
They sand them. They torch them. They put them in the oven. I can't tell you how many things I've seen people do.
Right.
And you read stuff online and everybody has some suggestion.
Just put them in the oven.
Do this. Yeah. Like
500
rub them on the
degrees for
concrete, use a file, like only go vertical, with your file, or no, you got to go horizontal, whatever, they come up with all these different things. When you go to a bike shop, most common, the bike shop's going to be like, we're going to put new pads on.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because I have seen that scenario where people spend so much time trying to get that squeal out of that particular pad that's been contaminated, and it's deep into the pad. It soaks it up like a sponge. And so the bike shop has to charge you for that time. So you don't want to pay the bike shop.
It's actually cheaper just to replace the
put
pad.
pads on it. Yeah. And then it's fixed and done.
Yeah.
You don't want a mechanic like spending all that time doing that stuff and charging for it. And I've had these conversations on chairlifts with buddies, at pits, at races. And you can sometimes get a contaminated pad to stop squealing, but it doesn't stop very well. It's still not stopping. And so you're using a lot more finger force, and pulling a lot harder to get the same braking power. And so, so this contamination thing that happens is really common. And that is something that causes the number one, I would say, squeal. If it's not like water, like when you go through water on any brake, it'll squeal for a while until it dries out.
Yeah.
So, but if there's a lot of oil,
can't get it out.
It kind of will stick around.
So my second plan was to take Lacey up to the top of Pistol Hill and just have her run laps holding her front brake the whole way down. That's not going to do it either, right?
So what I do to fix a brand new bike that's squealing, in most cases, it's the bed-in process that is really the issue. And the bed-in process can sometimes be really straightforward and easy, and sometimes it can be really a pain in the ass. And it's funny because one of our listeners has they have these bed-in machines that you can, most of the time a bike shop owns one, especially if you got bad weather and you're indoors a lot and you don't want to be outside riding a bike for 20 minutes trying to bed in the brakes, or you just don't have an area to do that. Like you're in a mall that just doesn't have space. This bed-in machine will actually turn the wheel. Yeah. It'll sense, I believe, the force. I got a little tutorial from our listener Brian about it, but I didn't really memorize it. So, so I may get some of the details wrong, but it senses the force, and then it tells you when to apply the brakes. And it gives you kind of, an idea of how to bed in, which is really cool. Yeah. So,
and I imagine you can do it a lot faster. Yeah, something that's automatically turned.
Much more. Are
you thinking about getting one?
No, they're super expensive. Yeah,
not worth it.
And we can just ride it outside. So
in Arizona doesn't matter.
But the bed-in process is kind of different on different brakes. The idea is to get the brakes to mate with the rotor, and then two things happen. You need to heat them up when you do this. And when you do
But you just heat them up by using them.
Yes. Yeah. You don't want to take a torch to them. You don't want to put them in the oven. That's not what you're doing. What you're doing is getting them to basically put the brakes on and get them hot enough to where some of the material from the pad starts bedding in to the rotor. And that creates an abrasive surface that they both enjoy, if that makes sense. And then what happens is that you get more bite when this happens. And you tend to have less noise because they're at the same time, they're kind of beveling. And that's something that people don't think about, is they're kind of conforming to the angle of the rotor. Yeah. So one of the things that you may be dealing with is if you had a misaligned caliper, or if your caliper isn't perfectly straight, for instance, and there's two different planes of straightness. So there's the side to side, and then there's also basically if your post mounts aren't flush. And so there's tools that we use to basically mill those and face them. They call it facing. And that flattens them out because sometimes the fork will have a slight angle to it. So when you tighten down the caliper, no matter what, you've got one edge of the pad hitting the rotor, and the other side is got the opposite edge hitting. And so they come in at an angle, and they will take a while. So I have bed-in brakes for like 20 minutes, no joke, so hard that I've beveled that pad to where the noise goes away, because now that pad
it's worn down.
It's worn down on those edges. And so there's a way past it, but sometimes if it's bad, you can't get past it, and you have to go basically machine those post mounts. So
interesting. So when you guys set them up initially, well, first of all, Sumart makes that little tool. I gave you one that actually spreads the
Except
doesn't work. Works great for me.
Yeah, on 4-piston.
Well, you can just do 2 at a time.
Oh,
yeah.
Can you? Because usually when you push 2 out, the other 2 want to push.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I've only used it on the 2-piston.
Yeah, and that's the first thing I said when I saw that tool. I'm like, hey, this will only work on 2-piston.
So all we need to do, though, we're going to try to solve this right here, but all we need to do is replace those washers with something big enough. Does that make sense? Because it's just a magnet.
I got you. You can on that tool. We're talking on that tool.
On the tool. Anyways, and then I've got this another little tool that I put on my rotor, and it slides, inside between the pads and the rotor.
Yep.
And then I loosen the caliper. I pull the brakes.
Yep.
Tighten the caliper bolts. Then I take that little tool out, and it's just a little spacer on each side that gives you I don't even know how much, but just enough to where they're not touching. That typically lines it up like.
That usually works. We do I do the cheater method all the time. Where
what's the cheater method?
You kind of have the caliper bolts fairly. You want them cinched down to where like
still move it, but it's not
like a quarter turn will tighten it, but it still can move. And then you pull the brake and hold the brake, and you want to have the wheel kind of pushing towards the pad or pushing the caliper as it's clamped on the rotor towards either the stay or the fork, so that it's not backed off. And then you just kind of snug those down, and then you can usually go to town. Where that usually doesn't work, so that's kind of a rule of thumb that kind of works sometimes, but not all the time. Sometimes the depending on the brake bolts, how the brake manufacturers design them, if they have the caliper positioning washers, those conical ones. Yep. Sometimes those develop a memory, so I have to break them apart and kind of spin them around so that they don't have the same memory, because sometimes they'll try and put the caliper at the same angle. So there's lots of little techniques that you kind of run into trying to figure this out. In other words, there's no right answer.
Yeah.
But my most go-to when I have a problem brake is I need to sight the caliper. So I need to look through the caliper, usually through the brake pads.
You're just lining it up.
Yep.
Yeah. My eyes, so you see light on both sides. Yeah. Do you shine a flashlight through the bottom?
Flashlight or a light box. Sometimes we'll make a light box, which is kind of like just think of like a fluorescent light that's rectangular. You can set on the ground.
Yeah.
And so you can get a good view, and then you can really kind of start to see it. And sometimes you have to sight straight down, but sometimes you have to look through the pads like you're the rotor, from the rotor side.
Okay.
So not straight down through the pad, the hole that's usually in the caliper. So the key there is to make sure that you're really getting that thing perfectly aligned. That'll reduce it before you go with the bed-in process. Right.
Okay.
And so trying to get that as straight as possible, make sure your torque is good on your bolts so that there's nothing loose.
Yep.
And then repeat the bed-in process. This is why brakes are a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I was just looking down. One topic. We're 23 minutes in.
Yeah, I know. Are we really? Jesus. And we're not. We've just started because, oh man, get me started on fluids and your tool. Let's talk about your tool real quick.
Okay, Sumart makes this tool that I think is super cool.
Yes,
and it will push. Like historically, when you pull the pads out, sometimes the pistons are still out.
They're self-adjusted.
Yeah, so they're self-adjusted. So I used to just take. And I don't know, bike mechanic taught me this years ago. I used to just take like a tire iron and push them back in.
Yep. Yeah.
But then I ended up getting one, and I didn't understand this because someone had done a lever bleed and they didn't pull the pads out.
Yep.
And they didn't put a block in.
Yep.
And so what ended up happening was there was more fluid in the system.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
That happens a lot.
And so I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
I couldn't get the pistons. I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't get the pistons back in. I ended up chipping one of the pistons because they're ceramic.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is shitty.
Yep.
But, and then I ultimately I was sat back. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I was like, oh, there's probably too much fluid in the system. So I, uncapped it at the lever and pushed them in, and they went right in, and a little bit of fluid came out. And I was like, all right, that's exactly what it was.
Yep.
But I bought that in my struggle to figure out what the hell was going on, how I was going to fix this. I bought that Sumart tool, and it worked awesome. but I was only using it on a 2-piston, to your point, because it's only set up to push 2 at one time.
Yeah. So describing this tool is basically it's got 2 plates on it that look like a rotor or like a brake.
They're washers.
Piston. Yeah. And then what happens is as you screw it, there's a wedge that comes in from both sides that evenly pushes them outward.
Yeah.
And so you put it between the pistons. As you tighten it, it evenly is supposed to push those pistons back in, which is what you want to do. Yeah. So, but the first thing I saw when I saw this tool is I'm like, that only works on 2-piston. It won't work on 4. And when you have a 4-piston system, they are all linked. So if you push 1 in, the other 3 will move slightly. Yep. If you push 2 in, 2 other ones will move. You got to push them all in.
So we just got to mod it so it pushes all 4 at the same time.
Yeah,
and I've got a thing in my head. I don't know that I can explain it in words right now, but I got a thing in my head that I think will work.
It would be easy to make a piece that goes in there. But,
that's all I'm saying.
But you would have to make that piece different size for different calipers.
Right.
Because the length of a 4-piston pad is not always consistent.
Is different.
Yeah. So it gets a little complicated. The 2-piston is way easier. So that tool scared the shit out of me when I saw it, because I'm like, this is not good, because this is marketed towards consumers. And you touched on exactly why it scares me, because Shimano is a good example. They make ceramic pistons, and it is very common that we see a ceramic piston cracked or chipped or broken because somebody's trying to reset their pistons.
Yep.
And they've, under whatever reason, they've gotten something in there to try and pry it back, but maybe they didn't crack the bleed port open. They didn't know that part of the process. They didn't know that they could be overfilled with fluid.
Like my dumbass.
Well, and then that gets expensive because
I had to replace the brake.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can buy that piston. I don't know, but
there's like aftermarket ones that we've tried. Sometimes it's they'll just leak right off the bat. Like you can go on eBay and Amazon and get them. We got one set for a customer. And I think we were able to get them to work because the way those pistons work is there is a seal in there, and it's usually a square seal. So once the piston either comes out all the way or cracks, you've now get all the crap out of there. And then you've got to get the new piston in without cutting that seal. And so if that seal has been cut either in the cracking process or just by putting the new one in, it'll start leaking, and lo and behold, you'll have contaminated pads before you know it.
Probably half of our listeners that have never worked on a disc brake before, like, what the fuck are these guys talking about?
Well, yeah, and this is really a common thing, that changing your own pads should be easy. But the first thing you should do is check online or go to your local shop for a quick tutorial. The first thing you'll hear at a bike shop in most cases that you need to get some sort of bleed apparatus that attaches to the lever. And you'll a lot of people look at us like, what are you talking about? I just want to put pads in. I can do that, but these hydraulic brake pads, they self-adjust, which means that the hydraulic system is designed to push in fluid, and then the caliper pistons retract a certain amount,
just a millimeter or two, something really small.
And that gives you the free spinning of
otherwise your rotor would constantly be. So shout out to Park Tool. They've got really good YouTube videos. And they have some good ones on brakes, so check out Park Tool. And I've been talking with Park. We're going to get them on the podcast sometime soon,
which I'd like to do.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I really like their products. It'll be more dorky than this episode, I'm sure. All right, one more question on disc brakes before we so we don't drive our listeners completely crazy.
Okay.
For those that don't give a shit about disc brakes. But is there an aftermarket company for pads that you would recommend?
That is a loaded question.
So like Cool Stop, like I talked to those guys.
Yeah, I've used Cool Stop before. During COVID, we tried everything out. Jaguar is like a distributor's brand. It's kind of a generic pad. Guys, my rep's going to hate me. I think it's MTX.
MTX.
Yeah,
absolutely is MTX.
I've heard great things. I have 2 sets of them. I need to put them in bikes and try them. You saw today that I'm kind of under braker. I don't have big brakes on my bikes.
So he's riding a bike that is like an enduro style e-bike or whatever. Yeah. And definitely, if I was riding that bike, I would put freaking what are the new Shimano ones?
The new ones are coming with the SRAM Mavens.
Yeah, Mavens. I put Mavens on that bike, right? But I look down and Dane's got Dominion A2s on it.
Yeah, 2 piston brakes.
2 piston brakes. I'm like, what?
Yeah, and they're titanium ones, so they're light with carbon levers and everything. So they're so cool. So cool. But yeah, I don't they have big pistons. They have plenty of power for me. And
yeah, you don't brake.
I don't. I try not to. I used to have a team called No Brakes. I mean, our goal was to not use our brakes. So
right.
But when I brake, I like brakes that modulate. It's really important to me. And so I'm not a huge fan of Shimano because of that, because Shimanos tend to put all their power right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then as you pull harder and harder, they don't deliver an equal amount to the equal amount that you're pulling harder.
Yeah, we talked about this. It's like a on-off switch versus a dimmer switch.
Yeah, and SRAM I've been happy with because they are
dimmer switch.
Hayes are a happy medium because they have a really nice levers that have kind of a lever, like a power modulation. Yeah, it's like it changes the ratio.
Okay.
And so as they come on, you get a decent amount of bite, but as you pull harder, you get harder and harder in a good ratio. And so I haven't needed too much. Their single piston pads aren't like tiny little cross country ones. You know, even though these are carbon and titanium, they have titanium bolts and carbon blades. Even though that they're the lightweight cross country one, they're not like
they're still beefy.
They have a good size piston, so they deliver a lot of power with that one, 2 piston caliper. And I don't need any more. I put on like the world's lightest brake on my last e-bike. And I was fine on trails, honestly, but I took it to Sunrise and I about died.
So that's a bike park.
Yeah,
lift assisted.
Yeah, doing a chairlift riding was bad with those.
It was scary.
Yeah, and they were stupid light though. So, like
okay, but you still haven't answered my question.
Okay,
is there an aftermarket brand that you would recommend, or
I wouldn't recommend any?
Do you recommend the OEM? Basically,
we tend to be more OEM orientated because if you have a problem, that's the first thing they're going to ask you. So like if your brakes aren't working or they're squealing or doing something, the first thing they want to know is, did you mess with their system? You know? And so, there are a lot of cool brake pads out there. I think the MTXs are the ones that I'm hearing the most about. But sometimes, you can get the wrong pads. So Magura is notorious for making way too many types of brake pads and gets confusing. Who is there?
It's like analysis paralysis. You have too many options, so you can't figure out what the hell to buy.
Yeah, there's another company that we used to do a long time ago. It wasn't Cool Stop. I can't remember who they were, but they had gold.
In red.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember the name either, but
I don't know why I want to say Eibach, but it wasn't Eibach. It was something automotive or motorcycle brand.
Okay.
I can't remember. God, that's bad. Because I did run them for a while, but they were confusing also because they wouldn't name the same stuff. So you also get to this user ease of like, hey, I either want them to last longer or I want them to, be quiet. And if you came in and said, I don't like that they make noise, we have an option. If you came in and said that I'm just wearing them out too fast, we have an option.
Or it doesn't stop enough.
As soon as you get start into a bunch of spectrums, people start to freak out.
So you don't have an aftermarket that you'd recommend. You've got mixed experience with them.
Yeah, I would say
you guys typically recommend to your customers the OEM pads.
Yeah. Okay. They seem to be the most consistent, and we got burned a lot during COVID. Yeah, it made us pretty gun shy because there was so much crap out there. We had brake pads that we were bringing in just because we couldn't get anything, where the whole brake pad material would separate from the backing plate. And just shoot out the brake, and so you'd have no brakes.
Right, that's shit.
It's really awful. Bad, yeah, because people were scrounging for anything that they could get.
Right on.
So,
all right, I'm going to switch to leverage your suspension experience here. But first, I want to ask you a question. Do we have in our suspension products on our bikes? We have fork in the back, fork in the front, shock in the back. Do we have dampeners?
We have dampers.
We don't have dampeners?
No, dampeners like a squirt gun. Because it's making you damp.
So we have dampers.
Yeah.
No dampeners.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for all of our fellow podcasters out there, it's a damper. Stop saying dampener.
You're going to make me look that up because what if we're wrong?
I know. Well,
like we're gonna look that up
the
before we publish
suspension guru
this. Yeah.
thinks, no, even if we're wrong, I'm gonna publish it like
that's
this.
Fine. I get twitchy about that because way back in the day, my buddy I was saying it wrong, and he goes, "Are you making things wet?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Stop saying dampener."
I'm gonna Google this shit while we're sitting here.
Yeah, basically this came from me working with somebody who was a literary arts major and like would critique everything that I wrote and said, and for grammatic clarity. And are you looking it up?
I'm looking it up.
Yeah,
and they might be synonymous, man.
No, man, I swear it's not. We're gonna look it up and we'll put it in the notes.
Both are correct, but damper is technically correct.
Yeah, dampener is like, it's like a mister. You'd have a mist. Have you seen misters you can get for your bike? You can strap them to the front of your bike and they will make you wet and cool as you ride. That's a dampener.
Right, hang on a second. So I got an interesting, let's read this here.
Are you going off of AI?
No, yeah, of course I am. All right, let's see here. So damper is only a noun, refers to something that deadens, restrains, or depresses.
Okay.
A adjustable plate for controlling a draft, one that deadens vibrations.
There you go.
A dampener is someone or something that dampens. So damper and dampener can both refer to one that deadens sound vibrations, but damper does not work for something that makes something slightly wet.
So if you wait, say that again. So damper,
like damp, like I'm damp.
Yeah. So damper doesn't work for something that makes something wet.
Yeah.
But dampener does.
I think we've just confused the shit out of ourselves and our listeners right now. I don't think we have a good answer.
You know what else bugs the shit out of me?
Yeah.
If your brake line for your front brake is run on the outside of your fork to your brake.
This is just something you don't like?
Oh, you know how toilet paper should go over the top?
I like it underneath.
No, that's bullshit. It should go over the top.
No, but how do you rip it then?
You just pull down.
You rip if it's from the bottom. You got the right angle to rip it.
No, it comes out like crazy.
God, here we go. No, it doesn't.
No, the patent. If you look up the patent for a toilet paper
roll, are you fucking kidding me right now?
I'm not kidding. You can Google that shit. But your brake line, for everybody out there listening, needs to go on the inside of the fork, and here's why: because there's bike shops all over the country. There's half of them are mad at us, and half of them agree with us right now. Mm-hmm. Here's why. We live in the desert. It's rocky. If you fall and your brake line is on the outside,
it gets cut.
It can get cut.
Yeah.
If it's on the inside, it does not. Here's why it goes on the outside, because people line it up with a little holder on the fork and it points it towards the outside, and it has to make a harder curve to go back to the inside.
Yeah.
And so they think that it should go out there because they're just following that line.
Yeah.
They don't realize the practicalness of it going on the inside.
And the design is actually for it to go on the inside. The appropriate design?
Yeah, the tricky part. So this came about with Marzocchi back in the day when they were made in Italy. They would put their stupid cable managers on the back of the fork right at the wiper. You know, it would be back there. And what we found out later, because we're American and we have our rear brake is on the right, and our front brake is on the left.
Right.
Over there, that was opposite. And so it would actually flow correctly with a with a right hand front brake.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we didn't know that. Manitou did the same thing with their reverse arches. So it gets real confusing. But if you follow function over fashion, it needs to go on the inside so that you don't accidentally cut that thing open if you crash.
Yeah. I mean, anyone that's looked at us knows that we follow function over fashion.
I mean, my kit does not match my bike. No. That's for sure.
All right. Stan's just came out with a new product.
Okay.
This is a type of suspension lubrication for your fork. I think also for your
Stans?
Like Stans.
The rim company? Okay.
Stans, yeah. That is designed to be put on your stanchion.
Okay. I don't even know about this.
Right. It just came out. I thought you might not.
Yeah.
So I thought
you stumped me.
Yeah. So this is like an oil that you put on your stanchion.
Yes.
It's supposed to help fix sticky suspension products.
Yeah. So,
and my hypothesis, you're going to say this is stupid. You shouldn't do it. I know you don't know about the product. You got to research and figure it out. But What is your thought about putting some type of lubrication on the stanchion, not disassembled, not inside, but outside those seals?
So this has been around forever, pretty much since suspension's been out.
Yeah.
So they've had a stanchion lube. So I use Maxima, and then SC makes a good one.
Okay.
There's a bunch of them out there.
So you're a fan of it?
No, I don't use it.
But you just said you use it.
No, I've tried it and I've tested it, and it's a good product. But like everything, depends on your climate. So, for instance, what that does is it helps keep the rubber on the outside moist.
Yeah.
I like that word, moist.
Yeah, moist.
And it allows it not to like stick. And so I've actually used it more on droppers than I have on forks. The only thing is, if you do that, you just need to kind of take off the residue so it doesn't attract the dust here, right?
In
so
Arizona.
Here we have this moon
dust
that is just so small that external lubricant can kind of get curled into the wipers, and
right. That's bad,
and bring more debris inside.
Okay.
So now here's the thing: I do suspension for a living, and if most of the wipers on the market are built to keep stuff out, believe it or not, than to keep stuff in. There's not a lot of force that's trying to force it out. But wiper is built with a lip seal, and then it has an opposite seal on the inside. Sometimes they even have what's called an energizer ring that holds it tight. And so kind of there are two access doors, right?
Right.
And so the one on the inside is keeping the oil in and trying not to let it out. It is doing a good job, and it's protected from UV, so it doesn't tend to dry out as bad. It can get messed up with like cuts in your stanchion or just time, friction and things like that.
Yeah.
The outside wiper is meant to keep stuff out. And so when you introduce a lubricant on that one, it may curl enough under use to where it lets the dirt in. Okay. And then the one on the inside is not designed to keep stuff out.
So you don't ever put this stuff on, basically.
I don't, no. And personally, I like a clean seal. So, and this is what I teach people in the shop is I have like an old tube sock, keep it in the car. And then when I'm done with my ride, I will just kind of do that kind of buffer motion back and forth and clean my
the whole stanchion off. And the wipers.
Yeah. I'm just kind of getting the dirt away so that as it's being used, it's less likely to pull stuff in. But here's the key. I also service my suspension. And that is the biggest thing that will help all of that, because there is a foam ring, and there is a process that the most forks are designed to bring moisture up to those seals and keep them moving. And in fact, when they're freshly serviced, you'll actually see some of that
liquid come out.
We call it weeping.
Oil.
Weeping. Yeah, you'll see those little rings.
Yeah, so that's normal.
That's kind of normal. Yeah.
Okay.
It's normal as far as if it's not creating a drip and it's not running down the side.
So if it's a freshly serviced, you'll see it. But if it's a shock or fork that has not been serviced in a long time and you see it, that's a bad sign. Is that right?
Yeah. Or if you stop seeing it for a while, that's a bad sign.
Okay.
And that's the time when people tend to put those products on. And so they tend to go past their service interval, and they're kind of trying to limp along, but maybe not even realizing it. And they're not realizing that their fork may need service, not just this external one part lubricated.
Is there a general rule for like how many hours or how many rides between services on these suspension products?
So there's 2 services on most forks. They call it a lower service and then a full service. For us anyway, we kind of have a generic time frame, because one company will say 125 hours on a full, or one will say 100 hours, and so we just say 100 hours, or roughly a year. And then the half service, they say, most companies will say 50 hours, and some companies will really push you. So Fox really wants you to do that 50-hour service. We don't actually do a lot of those in the shop. We do more full services, mainly because we don't have a lot of water introduced on our trails. So you're not riding in dirt, mud, and rain. And so there's not as much debris getting in, because there's no liquid pulling that debris in.
Got it.
The liquid is the transfer surface.
And then what's the going rate? Like, I know what you guys charge, but like, what's the going rate for these services typically?
Oh man, that's something I actually need to go around and figure out. Around the country, it's like about 150 to 175 for a fork. and then more for a rear
This is
shop.
the full service.
Full service, yeah. A lot of bike shops can perform the 50-hour. It's not super hard. You just have to have a couple tools and some fluids and a little bit of know-how. It's not crazy hard. And so like when we do a lot of suspension for other bike shops, we tend to almost never do lower service because I think that's something. In fact, I've gone to shops and shown them how to do lower service because I feel like that's something they can absolutely do. Right. We do the damper service and the air service, and there's a lot of clamps and special tools, special bleeding systems and stuff. So it tends to be a lot harder. Right. My biggest issue that I have is that when that shop doesn't tell you, they say they serviced your fork. That's all they say. And you don't
know if it's a full or a half or a lower.
They just don't educate you because, they're either they don't know or they just don't want to send it out somewhere. And then your damper blows up. So like the dampers will take on extra fluid. And as they become engorged inside the fork, they can't expand anything. There's rubber damper bladders.
Right.
And so as they get more and more fluid, they can expand, and then they can.
When you say blow up, you mean literally?
Well, not like fiery. No, they just
like they
pop.
actually
They
pop.
pop. Yeah, like a balloon. Yeah. And when they pop, they dump all their damper fluid. Your lockout stops working. Your damper stops working. You can even get what's called hydrolocking, where if enough of that fluid gets in the lower of the fork, you can sometimes stop the fork from having full travel. And it's just bad, Right. And that is really avoidable when you get a full service because the damper gets serviced and it gets a right amount and there's space for it to expand over that 100 hours of use. So
interesting.
So that's one of the big things that bike shops can do. And sometimes if they're not paying attention or they just don't know, they don't educate the customer that still needs to be done. And so they kind of say, we serviced it. It was $100, right? And the customer's like, it was a great deal. It was $100. And $100 isn't a lot, or isn't cheap. So you feel like it was a full service, but then 2 weeks later, or a month later, your damper's not working.
Dampener?
Nope. And and then you're coming to me usually because now your freshly serviced fork is no longer working, and you kind of start skipping from the bike shop and go to a service center.
Right.
So,
and then you guys do droppers as well.
Yep. Yeah.
What's the going rate for a dropper?
That also depends on the dropper. So some of them are cartridge based, which means that there's a sealed cartridge inside that's not meant to be taken apart.
Right.
And when that fails, you have to put a new cartridge in, and the cartridges can be anywhere from $25 up to $125.
Right.
Depending on the brand. And then on those cartridge base, we tend to charge around $45 for the labor. And that's pulling it all apart, replacing the cartridge. And then there's a key system and basically the sliding system, the stanchion system that we go service.
Yeah. And then some of them you have to recharge like the nitrogen or whatever?
Yeah. Some of them you totally rebuild. Reverb is an example of that. Fox transfers, some of the bike yokes, things like that. And those need quite a bit of service, and they'll need a ton of parts, and we'll go in and rebuild those. They're not all of them are meant to be shop serviceable. Some of them are service center serviceable.
Right.
So when I say service center, it's somebody that's really orientated towards actually working on that product. They have all the correct tools, the correct know-how, the correct training, and versus a bike shop, which is sometimes getting something they've never seen before. And there's good guys who know, or girls who know what they're doing, and they kind of work their way through it.
Yeah.
But they may not have the correct tools and
they're figuring it out.
Yeah, they're figuring it out. So they tend not to do a lot of this stuff because it's pretty expensive.
Nuanced. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine, do all shops have like a nitrogen recharge tool?
No.
That's an expensive tool, right? I mean,
it's expensive. There is no actual tool. You have to build it from the ground up. And that is the tricky part, is like getting the right parts to create this thing. I'm not sure. I mean, I built mine with Fox, so
they helped you.
They helped me figure it out. Whereas, there may be, from the motorcycle industry, there may be actual ones set up there, but there's certain tools to interface from the nitrogen system to each and every type of suspension. So we have like a drawers full of these adapters,
right,
to use the nitrogen system on different types of shocks, and not just one brand, but like one brand will have 5 or 6 different types, and then they'll come up with a new one every year, and then you have to buy the new tooling for that.
Right.
And then the shaft clamps, which are a big thing that's really important because these are sealing surfaces, so you have to have these special clamps. Lots of special tools that are like pin tools that are like exact, like a 3-prong or a 4-prong. Like I can't even tell you how many tools in the service center are. No bike employee would even know what they were if I stuck them out there. Right. They're so different.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. We were talking about droppers. I want to you helped me with a dropper problem today that was unique.
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd be cool because you taught me something I didn't know.
Well, last episode we talked about the things not to do with with
droppers.
With droppers.
Yeah.
And so do you remember what those were?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you need to keep your dropper post extended when it's being stored or transported.
Yeah, it's good
because it increases the pressure when it's down.
Yep. Yeah.
And I've told maybe a half a dozen people since that episode.
Yep. Yeah.
People haven't heard it yet. Well, by the time this comes out, they will have heard that episode.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to keep them down. You have them all down at your house." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an idiot."
It's just good practice.
Good practice.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this today on our ride because I think about the weirdest stuff when I'm riding.
Yeah.
But O-rings tend to work better when they're under compression, and when they're under suction, they don't tend to work well.
Okay.
And so, so believe it or not, putting it under pressure, the O-rings are functioning better than if they were being pulled up. So that was the second thing that you're not supposed to do is when it's down.
You don't pick up the seat.
Yep.
Or you don't pull on the seat up when it's down because that'll create suction.
Yep.
Which is bad for the O-rings.
Which can pull air into the oil system. Yeah. But we were talking about this in the shop the other day when we were talking about bleeding brakes. And one of the things, like an Avid system, sorry, I keep saying Avid because I'm old, but SRAM.
Yeah.
When you're bleeding SRAM brakes is they have 2 syringes, one on each.
Yeah.
And it's a push-pull method. And one thing we teach is don't pull much. You pull just a little bit to help with the one syringe as you're compressing the other one, because you can think you're getting air out of the system.
You're actually pulling air into the system.
And you're pulling air around the O-ring, and it's coming up into the syringe, and you feel like a superhero because you're getting all this air, but it's really being pulled in right at the syringe.
Interesting. So push. So from whichever one you want to be pushing.
Yeah, you push, and then if you pull on the other one, you're just helping it along. You're not creating a lot of vacuum.
Okay,
yeah.
That's very cool. I didn't know that. So hey, look, something that was a bonus topic. I didn't know that.
Right.
What happened today was had a dropper that had a cable, internal routed cable that was hung up, and I couldn't get the cable high enough in the seat post to like reattach the dropper. I'd taken the dropper out or whatever. And ultimately, I think we're going to end up just going with a wireless to solve this problem.
Well, for your circumstance.
Because I've got 2 different
riders.
people that are riding the same bike. And so we're constantly having to adjust the seat height. And that's causing problems with the cable actuated dropper system.
Another caveat to that is this is on an e-bike, which the housing goes across the battery and causes a ton of friction. Whereas on my Rocky or something where there's nothing in the way, it's pretty easy to move it back.
Yeah, I've never actually had this problem on a different bike. It was just on this one. Yeah. But I couldn't get the cable up far enough to be able to reach. I've even got these long, I don't even.
What are those called? Hemoscopes or
something like that? Something that's like, it's really long.
Tweezers.
It's like big ass tweezers, basically. Yeah. I'm glad you didn't know the name either.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know what to call these things.
My wife's family's all nurses, so they'd know it.
They'd know exactly what it is. Anyways, what Dane had me do was, you tell the solution.
Well, so the key is that your housing is in the frame, in your seat tube, where your post usually would be. Yep. And you don't have an easy way to get it to come back up so that you can attach the right length or to even get the cable started in it, depending on which way you're going. And it doesn't want to move from one side. You can't just shove it into the front of the bike.
I did, and it just
binds.
In there. Yeah.
And then it's got the battery in there that's kind of giving it a lot of friction, so it's just not moving freely. And so I told you to pull the cable out of the housing.
Yep.
And then take a spare cable and put it through the front of the bike housing, which would normally be through the lever, but skip the lever. And then basically it'll pop out. You'll see the extra long, cable pop out your seat tube. And then you can kind of grab that and kind of feed, because the other end of the cable head is bumping up against the housing end cap.
Yep, and this is up by the cockpit now. So the head of the cable goes in from the top effectively.
Yeah,
and then you have a stop there, and then you can pull on the cable with one hand.
Yep, and then you can kind of
pull on the housing with another one. And then I kind of just broke it loose, and then I was able to push it through.
Yeah, you basically can rock it back and forth to get some freeness to come through, and that gives you leverage, because otherwise you can't just push it through. And so that extra cable, I've ruined a couple doing that, but they're like $3, so it's not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
And they help for doing that. And then once you get that freed up, which you did, because the other alternative on these e-bikes is the battery's in there, and a lot of times the battery can be up against these cables, and you have to pull the motor out sometimes to get the battery out.
And I was on my way to pull the motor out. I had the bolts out, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to pull the motor and the battery and all this shit out. I was so pissed. I'm like,
not a little job, a little job at all. So this little trick we developed because of, I would say e-bikes are the number one reason that we developed this, because of that. We've also used it on quite a few of like internal routing bikes that are real weird. So it's just a little trick to kind of give you some leverage and be able to pull it through rather than try and push. Because as soon as you push it, it just kinks and goes sideways, and then it won't go through. So
okay, well, hey, that's awesome. Okay, so we're talking about e-bikes a little bit. I've got a few things on e-bikes I want to talk about. The first is I was riding up at Haas on Friday. It's a rodeo weekend in Tucson.
Nice.
So that means that the kids have Thursday and Friday off school. So we have a 4-day weekend. It's in February.
Yeah, it's like a holiday in Arizona, because we're Western.
Yeah.
To have a holiday around the rodeo. And this comes from tradition, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So back in the day when kids would need the day off, because a lot of them would have to go compete at the rodeo.
Right.
And so it became a tradition to have rodeo weekend. Which,
and there still is a big rodeo here in Tucson.
Yeah, a big time.
I'm not a rodeo guy.
No, me either.
So it's just a ride my bike day.
But we like the days off. So
it was actually Thursday we went up to Haas, and we spent the day up in Phoenix or whatever, and rode in Mesa. And Maddie, my youngest son, and Scanner, my oldest son, they were both on pedal assist bikes. Lacey and I, my wife, were on just acoustic bikes.
Yep.
And I was following, it is a lot of climbing up there. You climb a lot. It's actually
it's pay to play.
It's pay to play.
Very pay to play.
It's great for an e-bike because you can, just get you to the top and then you haul ass down. But, so I was kind of far behind the group. Lacey's a stronger rider than me. So she was up with the boys, and I just smelled this like burning smell, like an engine burning, or like a motor, like electric motor.
Is it a
burning.
tumor? You're having a tumor?
I was having
maybe a stroke.
It's a tumor.
Having a stroke?
Yeah, I wasn't having a stroke. Although I felt like I was having a stroke. But I look up, and there's Scander, my son, on this pedal assist bike, and he's pedaling at about half an RPM, like per hour or something.
He's got a cadence of 10.
He's got it on turbo, and he's got a cadence of 5 or something. And I'm like, and he's just burning up the motor.
Yeah.
Effectively is what he's doing. So when you told me this, and I've heard this before, make sure our listeners know, like, I think just about all of these e-bike systems are designed to be run with a high cadence. They work better if you're pedaling faster.
Yeah, I think that the design is actually, so one, what you're doing is the motors. So most of these e-bikes, the motors have been put into a gearbox. So like Bosch, Shimano, Bros, like a lot of these, the motor is not a high torque motor, and it's a high speed motor, and it's put through a gearbox to change that over to torque. And that's why they look like they do. The reason this is something that I'm more aware of than some people is because the Rocky Mountains are different. They use a high torque motor. It's still pretty fast. And then they have a one step down gear, which is a chain driven gear. And then that goes directly to your chain. So there's no gearbox on a Rocky Mountain.
Interesting. On the Dyname or whatever?
Dyname 3s or 4s, yeah. So as long as I think they've been doing it, they designed that bike way before most bikes. And so they didn't have, they couldn't just go to Bros or Bosch and say, give us a motor. They didn't exist. Like Rocky was out there before most, so they had to kind of do it out of the box. Anyway, that step down speed affects the motor. And so if you have a higher cadence, your speed is matching closer to the motor, and the motor performs better and gives you more power.
And you're putting less strain on the motor.
Yep. Yeah. And so
hopefully to increase the longevity of the motor.
Yep.
So high cadence is better.
Yeah. And high can be, because there's a new generation of motors right now, which are giving you a lot of watts at a lower torque. Okay. And so like the Bosch SX motor, which is new, and you'll see that on a lot of bikes that are meant to be really light but still have a lot of power. We call it a tweener. So it's in between high power and the SLs.
Right.
And it has like a 55, I think, Newton meter power, which is lower than a lot of bikes, especially the full powers for sure. But it has a 600 watt peak output. And that is pretty much on par with the full power like Shimano's.
But it works best if you're pedaling it fast.
The key is you need to be at 90. So like your Rocky likes to be at around 70 cadence, and these SX prefer around 90 to get the most out of them. So you got to be spinning your legs, you know. Right. And now the crazy thing about this is pro roadies, a lot of pros know this already, and they've been riding this way forever. Yeah. And you see pros, they'll do a high cadence because it's less impact. You're not using as much big muscle.
Yep.
And you can get more out of your muscles. You can go longer. And so I first got my e-bike, and it taught me to be less of a masher, because I was that guy that was like, I'm going to push the biggest gear. I'm going to get up to the top of the hill in the biggest gear than anybody else. I'm going to get up there in my 11 tooth, you know, because I want to just mash it, and I just stand out that thing and like just try and get up there. And because I don't know, nobody taught me. I just figured shit out. And so what the e-bike taught me is higher cadence. And it was funny because when I went back to my acoustic bikes, my climbing was so much better. I could climb so much longer and have so much more energy when I got to the top of the hill. And I wasn't going any slower. I was actually going faster. So
we have a couple really cool episodes, Dane, before you came on with a guy we call Wolfman, Andrew Wolf. He's a exercise physiologist, or was an exercise physiologist. I think he's working as a realtor now. But he taught us all kinds of things about your body and like how it interfaces with the bikes. And one of the tricks that he talked to us about was how increasing your cadence for the reasons that you explained, it like wears out your big muscles slower, is actually a better way to ride. So if you can pedal faster, you're going to be able to ride longer and feel the same at the end of the ride.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I experienced just by accident, because I was riding my e-bike. I was riding it a lot to recover from my broken leg.
Right.
And so it kind of makes you do this higher cadence. You can feel it. If you do a slow cadence, like Skander was doing, it doesn't give you much. And so like if you gear down and get your feet spinning, all of a sudden you'll pick up speed. And he just didn't know that.
Yeah, he didn't know that.
And but then that higher cadence then kind of sticks with you, because if you're spending 2-hour rides on your bike doing that, you're training your body to do that.
Yeah.
And so the side effect was I actually ride my regular bike uphill much better than I used to.
Yeah, after Wolfman came on, I worked on increasing my cadence. One of the things I did was I got shorter cranks because I was having pedal strike problems, but that helped increase my cadence because I wasn't moving, the circle wasn't as big. That helped. But also, I used to ride a single speed, and I don't do that anymore because it crushes my knees. But like that leads you to be a masher, I think.
Single speeders are kind of the outlier because they have to try and get the perfect gear for every trail. That's impossible. In fact, I think one of the appealing things about single speed is, aside from the simplicity and the quiet and the just feeling accomplishment that you can do that ride with one gear, is that you get to kind of figure out, you get a little more in tune with what you actually have to do to make it right on that trail. So single speeders will go to a trail like the Single Speed Worlds that we have here, or the Single Speed Arizona that they have here. They'll want to see the course because they'll try and figure out what gearing to have.
And they're not constantly, but they oftentimes will change out the gear ratio on their bike.
Sometimes they'll have them stacked on the bike. So a couple of my single speeds, when I got them used, they would have 2 chain rings on the front and 2 cogs on the back. And so you could switch the chain over.
Oh, interesting.
And that way,
mid-ride.
Mid-ride. So you could do bigger rides and things like that.
At that point, is it really a single speed though?
It is, because you have to stop, break the chain, or you didn't have to break the chain. You just had to dislodge the wheel, move the chain over, and then
You would have to have some kind of pulley or some kind of chain retention system, right?
If they got slotted, single speeds will have like different ways of tensioning the chain. So sometimes they'll have a bottom bracket that's eccentric.
Yep.
And then that's a pain in the butt if you want to change stuff all the time. But ultimately you got to get the wheel off to change a flat. And so you can take the wheel off. And
gotcha. And if it's sliding dropouts, then you just retension it.
Yeah. Or there are a couple times where you can change that gear ratio and the chain won't change length. The chain won't change length. So you're putting a bigger cog on the back and a smaller one on front.
I gotcha.
And the chain is the same length. Yep. And then some bikes have actual sliding drops, like you said, where if there is a difference, it's so little that it's taken up.
Well, hey, we've gone a little longer than we were planning, so that's never bad.
No.
Yeah, let us know. We're doing a little bit of these kind of more tech-heavy bike shop, kind of bike-specific stuff with Dane and I. If you guys are like this, let us know if you like this type of content. So far, these episodes have performed well, so we thought we would do a few more of them. Yeah. Let us know. You can send us a note. You can hit that send a text to us right in the show notes right below, or you can hit us on Instagram or Facebook and Mountain Cog. That's us, and appreciate y'all. You got any final thoughts, buddy?
That's it. And if you have some sweet dad jokes, send them our way. We're not scraping the barrel, but we're getting there.
Don't worry, we'll never run out of dad jokes. We'll never run out of dad jokes.